and Emily for the invite and the opportunity to do this. We've got some really good information to put out as it relates to assistive technology, and I just appreciate this opportunity. One of the things that I do, sometimes people want to know what is the latest and greatest thing in assistive technology out there, and tell us about that. And the problem with that is assistive technology changes constantly. And what's the latest and greatest thing this week may not be next week. And so what I try to do is provide people with resources so they can find those latest and greatest technological advances, if that is the appropriate way to go. But you might learn through this training that it isn't always about the latest and greatest, most expensive piece of technology that's out there in the world. And so I just want to share today some really valuable resources with you and some contact information. We have 15 assistive technology local liaisons across the state. So there's an assistive technology liaison near you, regardless of where you are in the state. They're part of my team, and then I'm kind of the assistive technology counselor specialist for the entire state of Iowa, with 15 people that assist me throughout the state. So that's a little intro as we get started. The goal of this is to provide information about our Iowa Voc Rehab assistive technology resources and to share them with you and to encourage you to reach out to us and improve our collaboration as it relates to helping individuals with disabilities go to work through the utilization of assistive technology. But not only those individuals with disabilities, but every one of you that are listening today and organizations. We see that we've got, basically two customers. Those are the individuals with disabilities, maybe even three, and the other are employers or organizations that help people with disabilities go to work. So there are customers, not just the person or what we call a job candidate, but employers as well. Our services are free, so feel free to reach out to us and let us help you with those assistive technology searches or exploration. And so why should we do this? Next slide, please, Bree. So if you take a look here at what I've got, I'm going to move this chat just a little bit so I can read the screen. Our IVRS rehab rate. Now, normally across the state, when a person comes to Voc Rehab, we have an expectation from the federal government called RSA, Rehab Service Administration, that we put about 55% of our individuals or job candidates with significant disabilities to work. That's kind of the tipping point, 55%. But if you look at these statistics here, through the incorporation or utilization of assistive technology, in 2020, our rehab rate for those using AT was 80.6%. So if you're working with individuals that want to go to work, especially in this day and age, wouldn't it be awesome if you could say, wow, if we hook you up through Voc Rehab or we incorporate accommodations and assistive technology, you got about an 80.6% chance of going to work. That's really, really good. 2019, it was 76.7. And you can see through the years, what's important over the last 8 years, our average rehab rate for those utilizing assistive technology was 76%. So that's over an 8-year period. So it just goes to show the utilization of assistive technology and vocational rehab resources can really boost those. We're even, sharing this information across the state because when our counselors are expected to get at least 55% of their people to work, when we go, but if you incorporate assistive technology and accommodations, look at there, 80.6%. So next slide, please. The IVRS spending over the last year, 8 years basically. So you can look there. Basically, it's ranged from about $787,000 to a little bit over $1 million in the year 2020. The bottom line is, if you take a look at that over the last 8 years, we've assisted in about a little over $7 million to help people with assistive technology and accommodation needs. Now that's money that does not come out of their pocket. So you can see we can be a really valuable resource when it comes to helping individuals obtain the assistive technology that they need. So just wanted you to take a look at that and absorb that a little bit. The other thing is, we can come in and assess a situation. So if you've got an employee or an employer that says, hey, we're working with somebody with a disability and we don't really even know where to start. We don't know what to do. They're, interested in accommodations. We're interested in accommodating them. Can you come in and assess the work environment? And the answer is absolutely yes, we can. And the cost is zero. It doesn't cost the employer anything for us to do that. That's whether we have a job candidate trying for their job or not. Maybe they're just talking about in general. They want to boost their numbers working with people with disabilities. How can we make our work environment more accessible? Can you come in and assess? Or, hey, we have an employee that's running into some issues with some limitations. So can you come in and assess? And yes, we can. And again, the cost is zero to do that. And I'm going to put you in touch with the people that can help you get that done in an area near you. So it doesn't necessarily mean Bob out here in Northeast Iowa has to travel to, Council Bluffs or Sioux City or anything like that, because we have people right there in the local area that you can refer to. So there's a little bit on our spending of what we've paid over the last 8 years. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some categories of really where we have been spending our funds. To be quite honest with you, the majority of our funds are being spent on vehicle modifications. And you'll also see down there where we've spent money on home modifications as well. And a person might say, pre-COVID, of course, what in the heck, how can a home modification have anything to do with work? But I challenge you to think of, whether you're working in an office or working from home or whatever, what are all the things that you do from the time you wake up in the morning until you go to sleep at night that you can relate to work? And in certain cases, if a person can't get in and out of their home, they can't get to work if it's not an opportunity to work from home. If a person can't get in and out of the bathtub to take care of their personal hygiene needs, that can affect them at work. And if anybody argues that point with me, I just challenge you for, say, the next week, if you work in an office, don't bathe and, see if that has a direct impact. And as you can see, that it definitely would, so we also help with home modifications, and those modifications might look like widening doorways because somebody now is in a wheelchair and they can't get in and out of their bathroom or their bedroom or to the kitchen. We may be building ramps on homes. Those are kind of the things that we do mostly with home modifications, is widen doorways, put in walk-in or roll-in showers in place of bathtubs, build ramps on homes, and usually it's one, okay? So a person might say, well, my goodness, if there was a fire, we should have 2 ways out of our home. Absolutely true. A person should have 2 ways out of their home, but our program is designed to make sure that they do at least have 1 way out, because there are people that don't at times. That's especially true under the independent living program. And the independent living program that I work is, it's just me and my rehab assistant basically that run that program. That's everything related to a person living independently that does not have a vocational goal. So they're not interested in employment, but you may come across someone in that particular situation where they need to have they need home modifications, or they're going to an assisted living or to a nursing home, or they have to move in with another family member and they want to stay in their home. That's where our independent living program comes in, and I am the main contact for that. And you'll have that contact information at the end of this. Hearing aids and ancillary services, orientation to new types of hearing aids. When a person is prescribed with hearing aids, it isn't just a matter of, hey, I've got my new hearing aids and I put them in and everything's good. There's an adjustment phase to that. So, we can help with the training, the orientation, follow-up services, that kind of thing. So the next thing on the list below the vehicle modifications is hearing aids and ancillary services related to that. Rehabilitation technology and services, that is so broad, but I'll tell you a couple things that we have done just recently. There was an individual who is an independent farmer and also does custom farm work that could not get in and out of his combine anymore. He couldn't climb the ladder to get up into it. And through our agency and Easter Seal's Rural Solutions Program, if you write anything down, you'll want to write down Easter Seal's Iowa Rural Solutions Program. It's a program that helps farmers continue farming despite disabilities or limitations. And they work in conjunction with us. So we are able to basically build off the front wheels of that combine, going from the front to back, basically a stairwell with hand railings on both sides of it. So instead of climbing straight up, if you can imagine a ladder, this individual actually gets to go up, stairs and hold onto a railing on both sides. So that can be rehabilitation technology. It might be assisting somebody with another example is a person that does custom farming that could not get his gooseneck trailer to attach to his pickup and unattach without cranking that thing up. And we're able to assist him to get one that's electro-hydraulic. He pushes a button, the gooseneck raises up, he pulls under with his tow vehicle, and it drops down. But it's figuring those kind of things out. Another instance, the guy couldn't turn in his tractor to look to hitch it up. So we were able to incorporate a recreational vehicle, an RV camera system that basically gives two views straight down at the hitch. So he can just look straight ahead and back up, and it gives him side-to-side views out the back as well. So there's no need to twist at the torso or at the neck. That's an example of kind of the rehab technology that we use. So we talked about home modifications. Then computers, parts, applications such as maybe Notability for note taking. Notability, it's one of the best out there, as far as usability is what I've found. People really do like Notability. And then, voice to text. Just when people are having a difficult time typing anymore, the voice to text programs and applications have improved so much. You may have heard of Dragon Naturally Speaking or Dragon Dictate or Dragon Anywhere. Those programs have gotten so accurate. It's really amazing. And I don't care how fast you type, if you can get down your voice to text, you will be able to do it much, much quicker, even for the fastest typers. So next slide, please. So what do we do? How do we do this? Getting started. Basically, I should say, where do we start, or who do we start with, and can you listen? That's the biggest thing that I've learned over my 5 years as the assistive technology specialist for the state, is we can get a lot better results if we listen to our job candidate or our student. Spend a lot more time listening rather than marching in there as the assistive technology counselor specialist, and I know what you need. The approach where we listen just really, really gets us further. So we start out with the job candidate, the employee, or the student, their natural supports, mom and dad, a spouse, good friend, whatever the case. They're valuable too, because there are times, and I'll give you an example. You may have one spouse that says, I don't have a problem hearing, I can hear just fine. And then their spouse or their children chime in, or their parents, and go, No, you can't. We have to repeat ourselves 7 times, and half the time you don't even know we're talking to you. That's where those natural supports come in handy, because it's difficult at times to talk about our limitations. And an example of that might be if you go to talk to an employer, how comfortable are you? Now, I'm talking about you personally, talking about your limitations or the things that you don't do quite so well, or you can't do as well as somebody else because of a limitation. How comfortable are you? Most of us aren't. We'd much rather talk about what we can do, what we're good at. So those natural supports can come in really handy. The employer, getting the information as well, or the input from the employer where somebody with a disability or a limitation works. HR department, they can provide valuable information as well. The individualized education plan, this is especially true for people that are looking to get into some training, or maybe even at work. And it's important to know, what it says. And here's why it's important. If somebody was successful, they got through high school and they did rather well, and they utilized accommodations or assistive technology, the best predictor of the future basically is the past successes when it comes to assistive technology. Because there really is a case to be made that it is so important to be able to try before you buy when it comes to assistive technology. And the honest truth is, most of the time, the first type of assistive technology you try may not work. So it's really important to be able to look at those past successes also. And then anyone or anywhere else, teachers, can they provide good input on what has helped this person, how they have accommodated in the past? So what has worked in the past? Is there any chance the assistive technology or accommodations that have been identified, that have already been successfully identified, can they work in the future? And so some examples of what we don't want to do is, you have a student just graduating high school, getting ready to start. They're in the summer between graduating high school and starting college, and the family or the voc rehab counselor or someone says, what's all the newest, latest, and greatest, best assistive technology out there so they can use that in college? And so now you've got a student that was successfully utilizing accommodations and technology in school, going to a new environment, quite possibly no parental oversight now. They're going to live in the dorms, new environment, new freedoms, a new way of doing business in college, new expectations. And then you throw at them some new type of assistive technology. Why don't you try Notability this first semester and see how that works? It's not a good idea to do that. What you want to do is identify those successful opportunities, incorporate them as much as possible. But if there's a need or a desire to try something newest and latest, greatest, the time to do that would be maybe between the sophomore and junior year of high school over the summer. Experiment, try that between junior and senior year, and then utilize that technology in high school before going off to some type of post-secondary educational training. So what I want to stress here is always be willing to ask and explore about those things that have already worked successfully. And don't feel the need to push the newest, latest, and greatest, most expensive gadget out there. Okay, next slide, please. So how do we kind of look at this when we go in and assess a place, as far as, where do we even start? Okay, we start with the employee, the employer, either one. And what we want to narrow down is, I've kind of got a little acronym, TLA there. What is the task? What is the limitation? And then we can identify the accommodation or technology to overcome that limitation so they can do that vocationally relevant task. So what's the vocational relevant task here? And is there the ability to maybe job carve where, hey, you know what? This person is really, really, really good at this part of their job. An example, Bob. me. I go out, I meet, I give presentations. I like to have that one-on-one interaction and assess situations. And then there's the paperwork that has to come along with it. Well, that's not my number one, that's just not what I'm the best at. But what if my assistant was really, really good at doing paperwork and documentation and case management, but she did not like to go out and meet with the public and give presentations and assess situations? What if she did all the things that she was really, really good at, and I did all the things that I was really, really good at? Wouldn't we get more done than saying, no, it's an essential function of the job? And of course, this is just hypothetical, okay? It is an essential function of the job that you be able to both meet with the public, give presentations, assess, and do documentation. And if you're not good at it, do it more, and one day you'll get better at it. Look at those kind of things, because frankly, if all of our companies out there looked at the things that their employees did really, really good and capitalized on that as much as they could, it may get them further than coming up with other types of accommodations or technology. It may be worth their time and effort to explore that. I'm not saying it's always the answer. So we look at the vocationally relevant task. We may or may not be able to do some job carving and moving duties around. And then we look at the limitation. So this is what the task is. This is what the limitation is. Then we can identify the accommodation or assistive technology. Maybe somebody's starting to get carpal tunnel, or maybe they lost the use of one hand or something along that line. So we go, okay, documentation is important. They must be able to complete their documentation. The limitation is they are not able to type as effectively as they could before. So what is the accommodation? Well, maybe we go with Dragon Naturally Speaking or Dragon Anywhere, and we get them accustomed to using voice to text software, and eventually they will be better than they were. And oh, by the way, faster than even your fastest typer in your office altogether. So that's how we look at it: task, limitation, accommodation. So you're not just taking a shot in the dark and looking at everything out there and where do we start? Start with those tasks. And that's what we do at Iowa Voc Rehab and how we can assist businesses. Okay, next slide. The search for accommodations and resources. So vocational rehab, we are going to be a resource for you, and we will get there. But I want you to understand a way that you're able to also look for those resources. So what has worked in the past? Is there any need to reinvent the wheel if something has successfully worked in the past? Should be the first question that you ask yourself, okay? Or ask the person that you're working with. And then if you don't write anything else down during this presentation, I would write down the Job Accommodation Network, especially if you're not familiar with it. The Job Accommodation Network, the only thing they do, this is what they do, this is why they exist, is to help come up with and share this information for free, real live accommodations that work for people in the world of work. And they have an A to Z disability list. So you could click on diabetes, or you could click on, cancer, or you could click on paralysis. You name it, you can click on it. If it isn't there, you can search for it. But what's also so valuable is you can ask a Jan specialist a question and you'll get an answer most likely within 24 hours. So the Job Accommodation Network is so valuable, and I'd encourage you all to go and explore that anytime that you're looking for accommodations. Nowadays, guess what? We can Google anything. You want to know about something, Google it. If you don't believe it, ask any one of your kids, if you have kids or nieces or nephews or friends, age 10 to 21. If they want to know something, Google it. YouTube If they make a recommendation, notability. They say, you Google, note-taking applications, and it pulls up notability, and you're like, wow, I wanna know more about notability. Go to YouTube, type in their search about notability, and you can learn so much nowadays just to get that initial idea of, this could be a possibility. And you can talk to that employee or that employer about this. It will give you a place to start. And they may look at the information that you provide and go, no way, I'm not doing that. That's not for me. Or, hey, I might be interested in learning more about this. The other things that you want to look for when you're acquiring assistive technology is there a satisfaction guarantee? Because chances are you're going to have to do one or more trial on different types of AT to find the one that's going to work for you. Kind of like our exercise equipment in our homes, that stationary bicycle that you can hang clothes on or whatever. Telecommunications Access Iowa. They are helping Iowans who are deaf, hard of hearing, or have speech impediments obtain relevant communication devices. So that's another one that you'll want to Google and go to is Telecommunication Access Iowa. They are such experts when it comes to deaf and hard of hearing and speech related limitations and how to assist people in that communication process. So definitely check into that as well. Iowa Compass. Now, Iowa Compass connects people with disabilities and other complex health-related needs to services and supports within their communities throughout the state of Iowa. If you just Google Iowa Compass and get to their main page, right away as you scroll down, you'll see a directory. They've got tip sheets right away. And then the other thing that's really important that I think is top searches, because you're probably not the only one searching for the thing you're searching for, and chances are it'll be right there in your top searches. So Iowa Compass is also a very valuable resource. If you're working with us at Voc Rehab, we're probably going to be having conversations about the information that you find, as you're looking at Telecommunication Access Iowa or Iowa Compass. And then we have the IVRS Assistive Technology Local Liaisons, and they're available to you, each and every one of you, to employers around you, and to employees, or what we call job candidates at Voc Rehab. So there's me, the Assistive Technology Specialist for the state, and then we have 15 Assistive Technology Local Liaisons spread throughout the state. And these are people that, like myself, just have an interest in assistive technology and accommodations. And that's really what my prerequisite was for them as they came on the team, is we're looking for people that really want to know and learn more about this. So we can
Bob, is there a way for everyone on this call to find contact information for their local?
Yeah, that was a great bridge to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Very good. So we'll go to the next slide. We're going to get there. So I thought it was the next one. It's coming. So absolutely, you're going to have a name and a contact. So examples of assistive technology inquiries that I've recently dealt with, and I usually get the harder ones. And so what has come up, and it has a lot to do with the environment that we work in right now with COVID, is workstation ergonomics related to working from home, setting up their workstations, headsets, and adjusting chairs and desks, and voice detect software, as well as voice commands. So, those are kind of some of the most. Home modifications, ramps, bathroom modifications, installing grab bars and railings, widening doorways, universal accessible design for new construction, vehicle modifications, driver assessments, driver trainings, ramps, lowered floors, spinner knobs, and electronic mobility control, EMC, AVIT systems, If you want to know about that, there's an excellent video on YouTube. You could YouTube Margie driving EMC AVIT, and it'll show you, you know, just the technology involved in allowing people to drive vehicles, and it's absolutely amazing. So those are usually, you know, the more comprehensive vehicle modifications, the EMC or electronic mobility control AVIT systems. And then, you know, I get inquiries about computer and software or application recommendations. Okay, next. Examples of AT, here's some more. Modifications to ag equipment, such as that stairway with handrails for the combine. John Deere, Polaris, and Can-Am side-by-side, comparing and contrasting prior to acquisition of this for a job candidate who is a custom farmer. He also does a lot of drainage ditch work and work for like our state park systems, and he needed to be able to get down into, you know, these ravines and ditches, and he just did not have the ability to walk. But this individual happened to be 6'6" and have a 15 triple E shoe, so it was really important for him to be able to get in and try these side-by-sides before he purchased one. And for this particular instance I'm thinking of, the Can-Am had the room for him and the ability to put on a park brake, because he couldn't in the other because his foot was simply too big to get to the park brake. An action sit stand track chair, smart pen versus notability. And I'll tell you what we've kind of found with this newer, younger generation is the notability works better than the smart pen for them, because frankly, they don't want to write. They just aren't accustomed to writing like some of us may have been from growing up. They do a whole lot more keyboarding and voice to text, things along, and texting. So, you know, to get out a pen and actually write, notability tends to be requested more. And then I get inquiries about prosthetics and comparing and contrasting Apple Watches, and then the whole hearing aid acquisition. I get a lot of questions about that too. So next. What about accommodation requests? Are they the same after the pandemic? And this is interesting. Okay, so, oops, I just really am having issues with that chat. I keep blocking my view. So what about accommodation requests? Are they the same after the pandemic? What may have at one time required an accommodation request has now become the norm, or what we call universal design or usage. So what do I mean? Well, you know, previous to the pandemic, someone with a compromised immune system may have at one time requested to work from home as an accommodation. And then the pandemic came, and now many people are working from home. And what I want you to think about here, and employers to think about, did much of this require an accommodation request? No. And why not? Well, probably why not, because it was needed by everybody. We're utilizing technology such as computers, Zoom meetings, smartphones, earbuds, headsets, computer cameras, etc. for most staff, where at one time it would have required an accommodation request to get. So that's not really the case now. And the question is why? And so, you know, what I challenge people to is that it was needed by many more people. And because it was needed by many more people, we went into action, and we went into action fast. So when you have an employee that needs an accommodation, you know, should it be drug out, or should we get it as quickly as we possibly can so that they can overcome that limitation and do that task so they can do their job well? So next slide. How is it working as the result of the pandemic. So there's been a big change because of the pandemic. Many organizations are finding they're actually doing quite well. Regarding IVRS, we continue to provide services, and at times even better than we did in the past. There have been people, that are going, I am doing so much better at this. As far as our statewide conferences within our agency, now we do Zoom meetings instead of bringing everybody to Des Moines and the logistics and the cost and everything behind that. So now rather than having an annual meeting, we have a monthly statewide Zoom meeting. We as an agency, as well as other people out there in the world of work, have increased our knowledge base as it relates to both assistive technology, but information technology. And we learned it and we had to learn it fast. So just kind of think about how it affected your organization or you personally. I think many of us know a whole lot more about having a Zoom meeting, a Google Meets, getting our internet to work so that we can do these meetings. And, it's really kind of force fed us to learn this really quick. This happened across our nation in record time. Adversity caused us to basically learn fast. It caused us to react fast. Do you think that would have happened under any other circumstance? And why can't an accommodation request work so fast as we go forth? Because I wonder, when we kind of reflect personally, when we found out we were working from home and we had to be able to do Zoom meetings and all that, wasn't there a certain amount of stress and anxiety that came along with that? And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is going to work, but I got to do it, and I can't work from my office. And we need to take that into consideration when a person is requesting an accommodation or assistive technology, that maybe now we all have a little better sense of empathy and understanding of the sense of urgency. So do accommodation requests need to happen fast? For us, we probably say, yeah. If I need an accommodation so I can do my job well, it needs to happen very fast. Well, what about for others? Is there that sense of urgency? And if not, maybe we should consider that. Next slide. Real briefly, there you go. There's your assistive technology local liaisons near you. So feel free to, you're going to have access to this information, but if you see the office near you, feel free to write down their contact information. And really, truly, we are there to help you, employers, employees, job candidates, in identifying accommodations, assessing a work environment, making recommendations, because you're all our customers and our services are free. We'd love to help. And then you can go to the next slide. And there's my contact information. I know I kind of force fed you this really fast. Feel free to reach out to me if you've got any questions, or you could reach out to Bree if you have questions. That way, what I know, when a person asks a question, there's probably 3 or 4 other people that kind of have the same question and could benefit from the answer. So you've got my contact information, and I would encourage you to reach out to me. But most importantly, find that local liaison and absolutely reach out to them as well. So if it's just a question in general about the presentation, reach out to me. So kind of how it works at IVRS, just so you understand what our system looks like. A job candidate's working with a counselor or a staff member, and if they have questions about accommodations or assistive technology, that counselor or staff member will do some basic research with them. And then if they have additional questions, then they go to their local liaison in that office and say, hey, we've explored this, we are still wanting to dig a little deeper. The assistive technology counselor or local liaison works with that staff and employer or employee And then if they want to dig even deeper, they reach out to me. So we've kind of got a 3 or 4 step process to just add layers and try to help find the accommodation or assistive technology that's needed. Free. All right. Well, there you go. Unless you have any specific questions that you have, I'd be glad to answer them, or you're going to get out of class a little early.
Yeah, if there's any questions for Bob, you can go ahead and unmute and ask them, or ask them in the chat, or just say a couple nice things about Bob and this great presentation. I certainly have a couple pages of notes here.
Yeah, Bob, I just want to say thank you. I wish our world had more of you. As a person with a disability, I was always resistant to my voc rehab in college and in high school, and I guess maybe because I was ashamed, but you made me feel so much more comfortable, and I wish we had so many more of you.
Well, very good. I do appreciate that. I will share, I went through vocational rehab through the VA also, and it really gave me a second chance on life, the way I see it as far as vocationally. I just was so into it. I didn't like to talk about my disability. You can't even probably convince me that I've accepted it totally yet, but I think that's normal. But through the services of vocational rehab, and guess what? We're all going to have some limitations, and we all have things that we're good at and all things that we aren't. If I could be a professional basketball player, that'd be awesome, but I'm 5'8", so we don't all excel at certain things that we would love to do. But I did go through voc rehab myself and had to, learn how to adjust to a disability a little bit. And that's why I do what I do, so absolutely love it. So thank you for sharing that.
Great. Well, like I said in the beginning, if you have anyone that would like to see this presentation at a later time, I'll have it uploaded either this afternoon or tomorrow, along with a link to the slides. So you have that slide with the contact information for your locals.
Okay. Well, thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you so much, Bob.
All right. Bye.
Everyone have a great day.
Afternoon.
Thanks, Bob.